So that's start for today's subject, which is we are going to talk about the concept of Ren. Before we start, okay, I set up this kind of this meetup as kind of 101 and the 201. So that means 101 means whoever never heard about anything about Confucius, about that, you can ask a question. Okay, I will make sure, okay, you understand. And the 201 means if you have some background, I will going to make sure you have something new to learn. Okay, so that's my purpose. So before we start, okay, so I want to give a few minutes if anybody think he needs some background about Confucius, about Analects, and then we can quickly go over. Otherwise, I'm going to start for today. No question? Everybody fine with the concept? Okay. Okay, so the most important concept in the Confucius teaching is so-called Ren. Okay, Analect is recorded by Confucius' disciple, so which is the third generation. So they keep so you always start with the master says, that's Confucius said. And it's very short, only have a 10,000 character, Chinese character. But in this 10,000 character, they have about, I think it's 105 words called Ren. Okay, so you can see how important of Ren in the concept. And then another background in Japan. Japan's emperor, okay, they don't have last name, okay, but they have first name, 2 characters, and they always have 1 character is Ren. So like today's emperor is Hito. Okay, that's Ren. Okay, Hito is Ren, and his father is Amahito. Okay, also Ren, and his grandfather is Hirohito. Okay, so they're always with Hito. That means Ren. So you can see how important of this concept. So today our job is to read through a few texts and try to figure out what Confucius meaning, what he meant of Ren. Okay.
Jason,
so we can see from the.
Jason, I apologize for interrupting. Hito means Ren. It's the same meaning. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's in Japan. In Japan, they use Chinese character, which is Ren, the same one you see on the screen. Okay, and then the pronunciation is Hito. Okay, so they say Hito. That's today's. So they always. So you can see how important of them, and I think it's already been this tradition for at least 1,000 years. Okay, I'm not very sure, but it's been called Hito for Ren for a long time. So you can see how important of this word. If we go through the word, the Chinese writing is this way, and it means the people and the 2. This one is number 2. So we don't know what's the meaning before Confucius. Okay, but based on the writing, we should know. Okay, it's something with people and not yourself. You must deal with somebody, so it must have some moral sense. And the Confucius seems very concerned about this word, and he used this word a lot. So that's why you will see a lot of different translation. Okay, in pronunciation in Japan they call Hito, and then we call Ren, and then some translation called Gen, Gen, that depend on the dialect you are using. So in general, you will see different kind of translation like humaneness, humanity, goodness, benevolence, authoritative conduct, or some different kind of thing. And the best way to see it, another way to look is I know it when I see it, right? That's in 1964, the Supreme Court judge talk about, I think he talked about obscenity, okay, pornography issue, and how to define what's obscenity, right? So he said, when I see it, I know it when I see it. So basic Ren the concept is kind of like this kind of concept. That's why Confucius never give a clear definition about Ren. Okay. So let's go through a few definitions. Ren for this person is going to be different from Ren for that person. So basically, it's talking about different. This one I copy from Roger Ames. Okay, he is a scholar. I presented this one a few months ago. I think this one could be a good explanation. Okay, so basics it's not through compliance with the principle as such. So that's why Confucius never give a clear definition on what is Ren. Okay, but today, since we are doing this one, let's figure out how Confucius talking about Ren. Okay, any question?
Yeah.
Okay, Phil.
Yeah, I noticed that Ren is made up of the radical meaning a person and the other part meaning two.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to imply relationship, which is good. You know, I understand that part. But two means like a more intimate relationship between two people rather than many people. Could you say something about the intimacy versus sort of more a commonality? Because he chose two instead of, for instance, even three.
Okay, so we don't know, okay? And then I think we will leave this answer to the end, okay? So we can use the word, but they have a different kind of writing. I didn't show all of them before Confucius' time. Some writing is heart and people. Some writing is body and the heart. So we don't know, you know, at least I don't know. Okay, what's the meaning? But vaguely we sure, okay, we believe that's something with people and not one people, okay, and okay, so that's the way I understand. Yeah. So without going too much interpretation, understand this one. I will suggest let's go through the text and make sure at the end we have a better understanding. You know, what's the meaning of Ren in Confucius sense, right? So we have a Madeline and Pin. Madeline, please.
Yes, hi everyone. Jason, could you put up the next slide, the one with the Ames quotation on it?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. I thought this was really great, and it covers it covers a lot of what you talk about and also what Pin had talked about, and we've talked about in these groups before, which is the interdependency of Chinese culture in a way that we don't have in the West. And I'm looking at the word environing. Usually I get all up on my internal huffy high horse when I see a verb, a noun turned into a verb like that. But I really like environing. And we don't have many words like that in the English language. I think it's incredibly useful. And so I think that what he's talking about here, those who are better versed in Western philosophy than I am, think about metaphysical absolutes. And this kind of covers it, that this is not about metaphysical absolutism, that it's about not necessarily a situational thing, but more of a steadiness of character, as we might call it here. And a commitment, we might call it integrity here, but not necessarily a compliance with abstract principles, more of an internal moral system.
Yeah, thank you. I also agree with you. And then in Chinese or Asian philosophy, usually environment is more important, and in the Western, principle, okay, are more important. So that's the difference. That's why in our point of view, I mean the Western point of view, we will find out like how come you don't give us a clear definition. So I think that's the difference, and that's also the difficult part. Pin, please.
Oh, hi. Just want to attempt a very quick answer to Phil's question. So yeah, I have this Chinese dictionary that focuses on the symbolic meaning of characters. So it says the two actually also means being generous. So kind of like whatever you have, you reproduce it for other people. So that's one, yeah.
Yeah, the today's translation, Ren, probably call it benevolence. Okay, but it's not all about that. Compassion also some of that, but they also have the meaning of direction, right? From the relation, it's not equal relationship, so it's a complex. Okay, so that we will go through on that, and then basically today I'm using the paper. I post on the meetup page, okay, and I'm going through for I think he has about 9 paragraphs. I'm going through this one, and I probably will add 1 or 2, I think is related, they are related then. And then I do some modification about the translation, okay, but basically I keep the same. But the big change is I replace the humanness to the word 人, okay. So that's I'm going to do. Excuse me, in my translation. They talk about 人, okay, so I'm going to just directly call it 人. And they also use a lot we call 人者, that's the person who have been 人. I just call it the 人 people, make it simple, okay. And they talk about 不人, 不人, that means not 人, okay. So I just call it not 人, okay. And there's the people called who doesn't practice 人, so I call it not 人 people. Okay, make it simple, just kind of like Heidegger's philosophy. Okay, just put another dash and make it a word. And I think that will make the concept clear. Okay, otherwise you go through all different kind of words. So let's repeat 人. Okay, that's the thing we try to figure out. And 人者, that's the people who have been 人 or practice 人 or being called 人, or the 人 people. And for people, for the situation not 人, opposite of 人, we call it not 人. And the people doesn't practice 人, we call it not 人 people. Okay, make it simple. And a few other words, I'm not going through too detail, but that's just because we are focused on 人. So the others we just not dive through too much, but use general translation. One important word is 智. Okay, so in we call it wisdom, okay, and knowledgeable, okay, that's all the same word during that time. And the people with wisdom or people with knowledge, we call wise men, okay, that's to make it translation simple. And the Dao, okay, so every philosophy in Chinese, they have a Dao, okay, so it's not only Taoism has Dao, everything has Dao. So Confucius also talk about Dao. That's also important. Okay, even the bad guy, they have the Dao, the robber, everything. Everybody have the Dao. So we just call it the Dao. Okay, without translation. 君子, that's also important in Confucius sense. Okay, just have to mention 君子before Confucius. Okay, means low-ranking aristocrat. Okay, so this is low-ranking office, being taken the office job, but not in the high ranking. Okay, low ranking, basic office. Okay, but after Confucius used this word, give the moral meaning. So Confucius consider when you see in Confucius teaching, you talk about 君子, that means the moral agent, your goal. You got to be a 君子. The opposite of 君子 is so-called 小人, small man. Okay, so that's a 君子and small man you will constantly see, but today you will only see 君子. Another word is 圣. Okay, so I translate as a sage. If the people, okay, we call it the sage. Okay, if the behavior, we call it the sagehood. Okay, basically it means supremacy, small button. Okay, in the politics, basically important concept is it usually means in politics. Okay, and some moral sense. There's moral politician. Okay, that's called sage. Not in the sense of Indian culture, sage as a holy man or religious, spiritual. No, it's not this. In Chinese, I think even in Taoism, okay, also use this word "sheng" as in the political and the moral sense, not in the religious or like a holy man. Okay, so that's an important difference. And the Yao Sun, I think we see that many times. That's an ancient sage that's 1,000 years before Confucius. Okay, so that's the concept, and that's we are going to. Before we start, and then we just want to make sure we agree on this term. Okay, and then we can move forward. And keep in mind at the end. Okay, or the purpose of today, we try to figure out what's 人, okay, and then how to translate 人 in English, or you have to explain to your friend the meaning of 人, how are you going to explain? I think that would be today's goal. Any question? No? Okay, let's start from the first one. Okay, I put the number, so if you want to check, they have the standard number. That's book 4, number 2, chapter 2. So I'm going to read. 人 and the 智, they always associate together. The wise and the 人 always together. So here we talk about, Confucius talk about, the master said, not 人 people are unable to abide for long in hardship or to abide for a long time in joy. You cannot, deal with hardship for a long time and not deal with joy for a long time. The 人 people find peace in 人, and the wise man pursue 人. Okay. So here is a translation error, I think, in the paper I share with everybody. This one called 利人. Okay, so the translator call it derived profit from Humaneness. Okay, I think it's wrong. Okay, just reverse, because Chinese doesn't have a passive, how to call it, agent-patient relationship. So 利人 doesn't mean get profit from 人, that means benefit to 人, okay, in the Chinese sense. So basically talk about for the 人 people, you will rest or find peace in 人, and if for the wise man, you will benefit to 人. So you kind of see the relationship between these two. James and the pins, please. James, please.
Sorry. Okay, I would kind of like West explain this as a person which is not Ren, a not Ren person, is someone who, in the best and worst of circumstances, will always find something to complain about. A person that doesn't live in a state of compassion and consideration for others and caring for others is always going to find something to complain about, even as both in hardship and in good times as well.
Yeah, I like your explanation. Thank you.
I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but
everybody can share your thinking, but that's why I talk about many times, because we were forced to memorize all this one for the college exam. So by knowing too long, we lost. At least I lost to analyze a lot of text. So during this chance, if somebody tell me something, that's refreshment, and then it's great. We have a Pin and Madeline. Then okay, so Pin first, please.
Yeah, I just want to strongly reinforce what you said about the translation. Yeah, to me, benefit from Ren is completely wrong. Yeah, I totally agree with what you said. Li clearly means facilitate or somehow benefit them, making them. Li original meaning is to sharpen a tool. So it's yeah, I would translate it as the wise man facilitate.
Yeah. Yeah, some translation is arguable, but this text translation is definitely wrong. So benefit from the
Yeah, it's very bad. That
very bad translation. But
you can get that wrong. I don't.
I think Pin will agree with me. When we look at the English translation, it doesn't matter what famous school and Ivy League school, we all find a lot of mistakes. So
yes.
yeah, I think that's why encouraged by Pin, I think both of us we start to do our own translation because we find out a lot of mistakes. Okay, we have a lot of hands up. Okay, and then I like to everybody just focus on the text because we have the 10 texts going on, and then so we can make sure we go over, and then so I think next one would be Claudia, right?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the sentence, the Ren people find peace in Ren. That sounds like some Taoism, because some principles of Taoism, the peace, tranquility and non-action, particularly the non-action of government officials, to let the people live in peace, less government interference and so on, the ordinary people. So that's my take on that sentence there. The Ren people find peace in Ren. So the people and the people who govern are live harmoniously and in peace and tranquility. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. We have a lot of hands up, so I lost the sequence. So I'm going to from the top to down. So I'm going to from Audrey. Please, Audrey.
Oh, well, I was going to use the text of the Analects that I have, which book 4. Oh, wait, you starting with 4.2.
Yeah, I start with 4.2.
Oh,
yeah.
okay, because mine has Ren in 4.1.
Oh yeah, 4. Okay, book 4 has a lot of Ren. Okay, probably first 7 chapters are all about Ren. Okay, so I was thinking about like collect all of the Ren and make a section, but then I find out it's not possible. Too many. So I decided to use this text. Okay, so we probably have a more chance to talk about Ren later. But I will run one more section about Xiao, which is filial piety. Okay, so that's all on in book 2. Most are in book 2. So there's a lot. Okay, so so that's
well, my note for 4.2. I mean, I find 4.1 very interesting, and I'd like to someday discuss why you didn't include that, or they don't include that. But 4.2, my notes say the final phrases here have led some commentators to see the Ren and the wise as very different types of people. Others see these as complementary facets of the sage person. And it sounds similar to what James was saying, I think. So I know we're not trying to narrow down any particular translation. So it's just hard for when I have a text based on what we studied before to sort of ignore it for this new article. And then not talk about translations when translation seems to be a big part of what we're reading in English.
It's a very big difference when you do the translation, because I also in the Dao De Jing, the Taoism translation, I will talk about more in the next week, because the Taoism translation even more difficult and even more different when you read the English version. So some are just totally opposite. Okay. So and just quickly mention about why you talk about the first chapter. Yes, that's important. I almost want to put in, but I decided to take it out later, because it talk about the neighborhood, right? So you have to live with the people in the same together. So that's important. Next one will be Jyoti, please. Jyoti, is it Jyoti? Jyoti, right? Yeah, you are muted.
Yes, it's Jyoti. So I wanted to know, is there a hierarchy here? Because from
Yes.
translation, it seemed that Ren people are so much better than wise men. But with
Well,
the
okay.
new translation, it doesn't seem like that way.
Well,
So is there, better or no?
well, I will leave this answer for you, okay, for other people, and
Oh.
have to read more text, because it's hard to say, I don't want say it now. Okay, let's wait. Okay, so we have Rubana Elena. Okay, Rubana, please.
So when I'm reading this, the master said, not Ren people are unable to abide for long in hardship or abide for long in joy. And then Ren people find peace. Is this like, you know how in popular culture, this word Zen, are these the people we say, oh, they found Zen, or are there Zen people?
Hold on. You talk about Ren or talk about Zen? Okay.
No, I'm in popular culture. This word they throw out Zen. I don't really know what it means, but it probably means calmness. So Ren people are what we would in popular culture say, oh, they're Zen people, or they've found Zen.
I'm not sure.
I'm not
anybody
sure about the Chinese definition. I'm just talking about the word as it is used in the popular culture. So are they the people who are just calm people who don't get too excited or not or too upset? They're just in the middle.
There's another text we will show later, and Confucius said that the Ren people like what? Ren people like a mountain, okay? The Western people like water, okay? And I think we will later on we will show. This one, okay? Talk about the wise men take joy in water. The Ren people take joy in mountain, okay? And the wise men are active, and the Ren people are tranquil. Okay, the wise man enjoys, the Ren people endure. Okay, that's another Confucius, which probably I should show this one also. Let's also talk about the difference.
Jason, final question. Will you then talk about how to become a Ren person?
Confucius will talk about it then to the end, but again, it's we will see how you do it. Okay. Okay, so who is next? Elena and Elena, please.
Okay, so Jason, I have a problem with the not Ren people, because as far as I know, and I'm not Chinese, but and I looked it up, Ren means compassionate, benevolent, merciful. So when you're saying not Ren people, and where's that first? Okay, so so what do you mean by not Ren people? Are they people who are not compassionate and benevolent? And yeah, and also when you say that they're unable to abide for long in hardship, this to me doesn't really have much meaning what's happening here. So,
okay, well, first, I didn't say that. I didn't say that. Confucius said it. Okay. So.
I know, but the translation here, the not Ren people, is it? I don't think it's it's too. It's not explained well. What?
Yes, that's
not compassionate or not merciful, not benevolent. I mean, not Ren people. That's in English. That just doesn't.
Yeah, that means they
can't understand it.
yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult even in Chinese. Okay, so not Ren people means deck of Ren. Okay, is that necessarily bad? I'm not sure. Okay, if you have a compassion, you deck of compassion. Okay, so I think that would be the proper understanding.
I think of it as an antonym of the one with Ren. So not Ren is someone devoid of that quality, or someone who is opposite of the benevolent person. So
I probably a little bit different than what Pin talking about. Pin talk about the opposite of Ren, and I kind of think about it's lack of Ren. Okay, so
Lack, yeah,
lack of
devoid.
Ren, devoid or private, right? Private, right? Does that mean opposite? Just like like Saint Augustine defined the vice of lack of goodness. Okay, so does that mean evil? Opposite of good? I don't know. Same kind of concept. Phil and Claudia. Phil, please.
Yeah, I think a Ren person is multifaceted. So I
Yes.
think this is only addressing one aspect of Ren, not the whole aspect. How I would translate it is that non-Ren people are short-sighted. They think in short terms. And Ren people are long-sighted in the sense of thinking in terms of sustainability. It could sustain itself through a long period. So if you have Ren, you could sustain the concept of joy. You could also sustain the trial through suffering. So I think sustainability is an important in terms of a long path of what you are. And short-sightedness is like, how do I get through the next hour, the next day, that kind of thing. So that's what I think.
All right, thank you. Let's think about that. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, Claudia, please.
Yeah, regarding Elena's question, what is not Ren people? Well, Jason, like it described it earlier, those who do not practice Ren. So that implies that you're not born with it. Like you have to earn it, you have to cultivate it, practice it, right? Like before, for example, a Ren person, prior to becoming a Ren person, they could have been anxious, they could have had anger issues, right? And even if you're born into like Ren parents, like in ancient China, if you're born to, let's say, a nobility, a noble king who practiced Ren, that doesn't mean that you are Ren. You still have to practice it. You have to cultivate it. So no one is privileged with Ren. In other words, it's not like something innate. You have to cultivate it, and you learn how to become it. Yeah, according to
Great.
Confucius.
Great, thank you. I think Confucius will agree with you. Yeah. Kevin, please. Kevin, are you muted?
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes, please, Kevin. Yeah, Kevin.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, please.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I've got to switch my earphone. Yeah, it's I as a start from let's say character I post from wiki. The first then is a person plus a second. If it's based Jason translation, not than people, not than let's see if you only want them, a person, individual. If that means that none of them people from that, let's say person to person perspective. If it's them people, it's two individual how to get along together. And like I agree with the fields for sustainability. How can you get live live long sustainable? Yes, that's if one person you only think yourself, we call it selfish. If other one is then a second then is two part would be a trillion. You do not just benefit to yourself, also others. Thank you.
Thank you. Phil and the Pin, please. Phil, please.
Yeah, I just want to make a friendly objection to Claudio's statement, not the entire. I think you have to practice, it's true. That's absolutely true. But I think within every person, there's already a seed of Ren, because if you did not have it, practice does not get you there. So it's just a seedling, you practice, and that becomes more and more perfected. But I think I think he's beginning from a positive attitude that you do have Ren hidden within inside you, and the practice is simply sharpening that state to make it expand and grow to maturity. A friendly disagreement.
Thank you, Phil. Okay, so I would say your statement is strongly supported by Mencius. Okay,
Yeah.
so Mencius talk about the seed, but that we will see. Confucius. How does Confucius talk about later? So patient. We only go through 1/10. We haven't finished yet, so we will have more to share. Pin, please.
Yeah, the way I tend to read this passage is Confucius his point wasn't so much about the not Ren people. He's stating the opposite to illustrate the positive point. I think this overlaps with what Phil just said too. Is that if you were able to achieve Ren, then you can be happy and be yourself and be peaceful even under hardship. So it's not so important that we understand what not Ren means, because it appears in different places in the Analects, and that's the general feeling I get reading the Analects. And one nitpicking quibble about the translation is that hardship is not quite right. It's more like parsimony or poverty, or a very basic life, because this Chinese character yue means constrained, or having very little, no, the opposite of opulent, and so that's just a little bit nuanced. That's all.
Yeah. Thank you, Pin. I think I agree with you. Yeah. The words yue, okay, yeah, doesn't mean hardship. It means you live with little, just like the Confucius, the best student, Yan Hui. Okay, only eat one meal, one cup of soup every day, and they're still happy. So that's the correct meaning. And second, thank you. Not doing the good job to call it not Ren people. It sounds like a bad person, but I think Confucius should keep talking about not Ren people. He is not talking about the bad people. He's talking about, he used negative to define the positive. Okay, so basically you can read as the Ren people can stand for live with very little. The Ren people can endure, for for the joy for a long time. Okay, so probably that would be proper meaning on that. Okay, so eventually we finish 1/10 of that, so we can move the second part. So we talk about how to practice Ren. Okay, so on the second, as same in the book 4 and the chapter 5. Okay, the master said, wealth and honor are what people desire, but one should not abide in them if it cannot be done in accordance with the Tao. Okay, so that's very common. Okay, poverty and the lowliness are what people dislike, but one should not avoid them if it cannot be done in accordance with the Tao. So everything have to according with Tao. Okay, you get the wealth and honor, you should according with Tao. You want to get rid of poverty and the lowliness, you should do it with Tao. Okay, so if Junzi rejects Ren, how can he keep his name, his title? Okay, so that's Confucius' famous rectification of name. Okay, so you will keep the title Junzi. You cannot reject Ren. Okay. Junzi does not abandon Ren for any moment. He is bound to it, even in the time of hardship and the danger. Okay, so that's I kind of twist the translation, make it simple. Basically, it talk about you have to always keep Ren in your mind. In the word, okay, word by word, 中时之间, that means between the meal. Okay, Confucius says you never violate, reject between the meal, but the meaning is all the time. Okay, even you are rich. Okay, even you are in danger, you are in a hardship, you should always keep Ren. Without Ren, you are no more Junzi. Okay, the moral agent. So, Phil, please.
Yeah, since everybody used Tao and Tao means so different, it's important to have a sense of what Tao is. I might be wrong, but I get the feeling that this Tao is the way of civilization rather than the way of nature. Because your Tao is that if you move through it and it's in harmony with the culture and the civilization, that is the Tao that he must be talking about, rather than in harmony with the rain and the sun and whatever there is. I think that this emphasis is quite different, use of the Tao, and we must understand this, if I'm at all correct, that the emphasis really is between nature and culture, or nature and civilization. So I think that that changes what the Tao actually means, and not talk in cross purposes.
Yeah, I just have to mention, if you remind everybody, like last 2 weeks ago, we read, when we read Han Fei, he also talk about Tao. When we read Art of War, okay, we also talk about Tao. So especially, well, not only ancient, okay, for 2,000 years, even today, okay, if you do something, somebody probably will tell you it's not follow the Tao. And what's the meaning of Tao? It's a big question. Okay, so every answer. Sorry, Phil, your answer just partially right, but every answer probably just partially right. So, Pin, please.
Yeah, just to follow on this great point. I think Tao, although there's one kind of commonality between all these different philosophers when they say Tao, it is true that Tao just means the way. It can be different things in different circumstances, but there's one thing is Tao ultimately is what's in harmony with heaven.
Okay.
But heaven encompasses everything, both nature and civilization. And you're right, I agree with you, Phil, that in this passage, it has a particular emphasis. But I think it's also, I think, keep in mind that there is also a holistic aspect of Tao. Like even when Sun Tzu, when he says, about fighting a war, you have to be in harmony with the weather, the climate, the landscape. It all ultimately it does go back to heaven in all these different philosophers' minds.
Yeah, Tao is a big question. Confucius said, if I heard about Tao, I understand Tao in the morning, I can die in the evening. Okay, that's how important it is. So Confucius lived for 73 years. He probably not heard about, understand Tao. So that's what he said. Famously said, if I heard about Tao in the morning, and I can die in the evening. That's how important of Tao.
And there's an interesting contrast. And Zhuangzi says something very similar. That if you hear the Tao in the morning, you will drink ice in the evening, because you will feel so hot inside. You have the urge to drink ice.
And Zhuangzi also, the Zhuangzi student asked him, the robber, okay, the bad guy has Tao or not? And Zhuangzi said, yes, of course, they have their own Tao. Okay, so then he started to explain. So and if you continue in this session, you probably will hear about Tao every week. So, unless we do Buddhism, they probably have no Tao over there. So. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so here Confucius further defined being Ren. Okay, so the master said, I have not seen one who loved Ren, nor one who hated not Ren. Okay, one who loved Ren will value nothing more highly than Ren. One who hated not Ren disallow another to affect himself. Okay. Later a little bit mouthful. Is there someone whose strength has for the space of a single day between devoted to Ren? I have not seen one whose strength was insufficient. It may have happened, but I have not seen it. I think he talked about, okay, I think that's my take on this one. Basically, he talked about two kinds of being Ren, right? You can have the person who loves Ren, he devoted for Ren, and or you can use a negative way, right? You hate not Ren, okay? So that's a two-way. So you disallow, you don't want not Ren to affect yourself. So that's a two-way of practice. But he's still not talking about detail, okay, in the Western philosophy way to define what is Ren. He just talk about it. And then the last sentence, he is talking about, in a humble way to talking about, I never see people, okay, doing this way. Even that's so simple. He believes everybody have this strength. Very similar to what Phil talking about, is have a seed, but he probably not talking about the nature innate Ren, but he talked about it's very easy to do it, but he didn't see people do it. Okay, so that's a little bit upset, but he think it's so easy, but you didn't do it. Pin and James, please. Pin, please.
My reading of the first sentence is slightly different. The way I read it is I've never seen one who loves Ren hates those who are not Ren people.
Okay, okay.
That's what I have, yeah.
That makes sense. Thank you. Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, that's
Thank
really
you.
clarifying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that helps. I think that's very similar to the comment I was going to make. I think the obsession, either way, if one is obsessed with with Ren, or if one is of a nature to hate not Ren, one is going to be affected by these qualities of the pursuit, in a sense, mindless pursuit of Ren, or holding value. It's as if, like in the Western sense, we hold values as more important than the individual who has the values. That's not the meaning of Ren. We don't throw away the individuals based on their values or their Ren-ness, but a true humanitarian advocates for the individual, regardless of the individual's beliefs, regardless of the individual's practices. He's still considered a human. So the obsession with Ren could be construed as destructive, and I'd really like Pin's revised translation.
Thank you, James. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and then that's I thank you for compare with the Western philosophy. In Western sense, we probably sometimes value the access to Ren too much and forget about the people side. So yeah, thank you. Who's next? Okay, let's go from Phil, Pin, and Audrey. Phil, please.
Yeah, I actually disagree, maybe because I'm too much in the Western tradition. I think loving Ren is a more direct approach to harmonizing yourself to Ren. Hating not Ren, there are many things that are not Ren that is beyond just the opposite of Ren. So you could end up crossing too many things off the list and you will never get to Ren. So I actually think that hating not Ren, it's just a very short-sighted way of crossing the list of what not to do rather than what to do. That's what I believe. So I actually disagree that the direct approach is simpler and a more direct path than, let's say, just crossing off all the paths you will not take, because there are just too many, unless there is just a direct correlation between Ren and not Ren, and that's all there is. And you cross off the not Ren and you are in Ren. I don't think that's the way it is.
Thank you, Phil. I just want to make it clear. You disagree what Confucius said, or you disagree on your own opinion, based on your own opinion?
I think I disagree with what he is saying, but it's interpreted by me. Yeah, that's true. Okay.
Okay. Oh, yeah. So yeah, that's why I want to make it clear. So please make it clear. Okay. So sometimes we disagree what Confucius say, or you disagree the way I interpret Confucius. Okay, that's the two different concepts. Thank you. I think who's next? Audrey, please.
I think it was Pin.
Pin, you still want to say something?
Oh, go ahead. My comment was a little off topic, so I decided not to.
Okay, yeah, please.
Well, mine is more of a question that I'm saying that Ren, I think I agree with James that the pursuit of Ren is not the same thing as having Ren or cultivating Ren. And so it's almost as if they're saying, you know, I mean, as a Buddhist, I see this all the time, you know, where, you know, you have to be a Buddhist and you hate all non-Buddhists or something. This is not a Buddhist, you know, it's what you do. And I think it has to do with how you act, which to me is what a lot of really good philosophers talk about is your actual actions and your actual intent, as opposed to what you're striving for, your desire.
Yeah, thank you. Who's next? Tony, please.
Yeah. So in the sentence, one who hated non-Ren disallows non-Ren to affect himself. That seems quite a strange sentence, because hate seems to be quite a strong effect upon a person. So just that, you know, hating something does seem to be already affected. So I wonder about the translation of that one really as well itself, because hate does seem to be quite a strong, as I said. But going back to the stuff before about the pursuit and the wise men, and whether non-Ren is the sense there's no excluded middle in non-Ren. So that there's maybe in the first one the pursuit of Ren. I'm not sure. I'm going against Audrey's thing here, but it seems to be that potentially the wise men are trying to cultivate Ren in themselves if they're in that pursuit. Well, maybe there's a distinction between pursuit and cultivation. But the thing is that seems to be potentially somebody, could that be then classify somebody who is Ren as somebody who's cultivating Ren, but in a sense they don't quite have the virtue yet. But also if we're thinking about virtues in a sense, there's a point where there seems to be like a kind of something to aim for. So you're trying to cultivate this virtue, you're trying to make it more particular, this thing. You're trying to act so that you act this way. But are you non-Ren until you get to that final point? And does that maybe mean in the sense that nobody is Ren because nobody can be completely virtuous and in this one quality of Ren?
I'm sorry, Tony. I'm not very clear. You know, it's because I don't. Are you asking a question or anybody?
Well, there's a few different comments and a question as well. So, do you want me to restate what I said?
Well, I can
yeah, Pin,
maybe take the first one, Tony. Yeah, it is an awkward sentence. The way I understand it is Confucius is saying, and this kind of goes back to the previous passage too, that when you are in a state of Ren, you are in complete kind of you're comfortable. And you've achieved that, you attain a level of kind of self-confidence and happiness, almost kind of like nirvana, that you will not have that hate for other people who haven't achieved that, because you're not affected by that. That's that's my reading. These are ancient texts. There's a lot of room for different interpretations. Does that help?
Can I come back?
Can I add one thing? Because I think Tony was responding to what I said also. And I think that cultivating Ren, when you're cultivating it as if you're cultivating your practice as a Buddhist or whatever, you're in that moment where you're working on that. It doesn't necessarily mean you've reached the state, but you're working on it. So you'll catch yourself about hating. You won't hate, or you'll catch yourself while you're cultivating it. It's just part of the practice. It happens. So I don't think it's a contradiction to say don't just go after the principle, but work with it, cultivate it. Means you're actually engaged in it. It's a very different aspect, I think.
Yeah, kind of, this is a great conversation because I wanted to bring up the Confucius kind of saying that, we're wondering about that, almost like a muse at the end of this passage, right? He said, everyone has the capability to practice Zen, but I've never seen anyone who does it 100% of the time. And I'm sure he includes himself in that too. So it's almost he's wondering, like, why is it? We all have that seed, we all have that benevolence in our hearts, but none of us can achieve where we are in that. We accomplish that all the time, 100%.
I think we need to know in Chinese philosopher like Confucius, he is also very humble. Okay, especially compared to Socrates. He's very, very humble. So that's why he will say, and I don't see anybody, doesn't have enough strength to do it. Maybe I have it, I just not see it. So, that's the way he expressed himself. So,
can I come back in? So I still feel there's a problem with that sentence because it's he's not saying that Ren people disallow non-Ren to affect themselves. It says that those who hate non-Ren. So do we take those the Ren people to hate non-Ren, or do we take these are different people? And so this quality of not being affected by something else, well, something negative, is something which Ren people would have more maybe in other people, because it seems to be it seems to be a positive thing not to be affected by something negative. So then there's a hate involved in it. So it says that, and anyways, but there's also the thing about this in terms of so if he himself can only not really be Ren every day, it seems to imply again that this thing about Ren people. So does that mean there are no Ren people? Because even Confucius cannot be Ren every day. Or does that mean again that cultivating Ren, it makes you a Ren person? So the wise people who are pursuing Ren are actually Ren people because they're pursuing Ren.
Okay, so I think here the not Ren, probably the translation problem doesn't mean not Ren people. Okay, this means not Ren this kind of behavior, not Ren this kind of thing. Okay, not means not Ren people. Okay, so I think that also the translation problem, because in Chinese it doesn't sound that hatred. Okay, so the word "wu" means he stay away. Okay, or not really a hate. Sorry for the improper translation. He said like one who hate not Ren. That's not my translation. I think the text is doing this way. Who hate not Ren. It's not, for sure, it's not like, okay, you hate the people not Ren. He said he stay away, avoid the non-Ren things, whatever things, okay, affect you. I think that's probably more close to the original text.
That's a great point, Jason, because this word in Chinese is really like the reaction when when there's a bad aroma coming and you cover your nose or you cover something. It's more of that kind of reaction. It's not hate. It's this avoidance or this,
Yeah, I think the hate probably not the proper word. It sounds too strong. Basically, the origin, and it doesn't mean the not Ren people, even the literally says Ren people, they try to avoid. They don't want to have this kind of bad behavior or bad things affect you as to being the Ren. Just like Audrey talked about on the book 4, chapter 1, Confucius talk about the Ren, you have to live in the neighborhood with people with Ren. Then that's the way you can cultivate your Renness. Okay. It's difficult. Sorry.
Yeah, hate is a different word in Chinese. It's either 仇 or 恨, and which appear very, very rarely in the ancient philosophical text. I can't even remember seeing. Yeah. Well,
that's right.
仇 I probably have seen, but it's very, very rare. Yeah.
Yeah, and okay, so let's move on. We have a few people. Okay, let's have Nathaniel. I think you're next, please.
Thanks. I think this is not that this is a bad conversation, but this is what it drives analytic philosophers kind of nuts. It's so poorly defined. It's like almost anything, you know, and I think we're running into this problem because it's so poorly defined. Like you can just say anything good is Ren and anything bad is not Ren or something. So I think that's almost it's a problem we're having here. Anyways.
Yes, I agree with you. Okay, it's a very difficult definition, or you will say there's a poor definition, and that's why we have today's section, and let's go through. And then if you don't find the solution, then let's try next time, or you give up. That's fine. I think we have Rupana Madeline. Okay, Rupana, please.
Jason, I'm a little confused, like some of my other colleagues are. Why would anyone hate Ren in 4.6? One who hated not Ren, disallowed not Ren. I mean, I would think Ren is a good thing. Why would anyone hate Ren? Is it
he hates not Ren, this kind of not Ren. So it kind of negative definition, right? He said he devoted to Ren, and then he hate not Ren, or try to avoid not Ren. Okay, so avoid not Ren, you also means you. So it means you choose your environment, right, with the people with Ren, and they avoid be close with the people without Ren. So that's the way talking about. I hope it's clear.
No, it's not, but go ahead.
Okay, yeah. Usually, Confucius use a lot of the negative term, just like pinpoint out, like early definition, right? Talk about not Ren doing this. That's the way he used his language, and in a way is more humble. Okay, not try to strongly say Ren is this, like a Socrates will do this way, but Confucius is more on the subtle way, humble way. So that's a lot of negative terms. So we have to get used to. And then when I try to work on the English translation, it's sometimes hard because first I don't want to confuse people. Secondly, I try to be honest with what the original text is writing. So that's the difficult part. If you find out it's difficult to understand, I'm sorry for that. And then next time I try to figure out a better way to do it. Yeah.
I think this hate mistranslation is causing a lot of confusion too. Maybe we should stop.
Yeah, I agree.
It's really more like
probably
being disgusted by nothing. More aversive to not. It's not hate. It's really not, and it's causing confusion.
Yeah, I think so. I agree with you.
May I quickly add?
Yeah, go ahead.
May I quickly add something?
Yes, please.
I think it's important to note here that he's talking about Ren and not Ren people. So one person can have Ren and not Ren in him or her. So I add a certain, it's a quality, and it's not exclusive in a person. So there's times when you are in Ren, and there's times when you can be not Ren.
Yeah, but I think the later on, Confucius talk about this. Yeah, he talk about a good student, Yan Hui, being very good for 3 months. Okay, always being Ren. And his other student is not as good, only can be Ren for like 1 or 2 days, you know. So, you know, that probably that's true. No? Yeah. Madeline, please.
Okay.
Okay, Jason, thank you for hosting this meeting of Overthinkers Anonymous. This one, this slide, the Ren and not Ren, it reminds me of a say, and the distaste for not Ren. It reminds me of a saying we have in English, which is, whenever you're arguing with a fool, remember that they are now doing the same thing.
Oh, that's good.
So whenever you're arguing with a fool, remember that they're doing the same. You are leaving Ren in order to enter their not Ren space. You've stopped inhabiting Ren and you are engaging with their, whatever their not Renness is.
Yeah, thank you. Claudia, please.
Yeah, if Confucius, you know, he stated that he hasn't seen anyone devoted to Ren, or
No, he
then
talk about, he never see the people not enough, don't have enough strength to practice them. Okay, so basically he's talking about everybody can do it. Okay, he didn't see anybody not capable to do it. Everybody is capable. Okay,
okay.
I think that's what he meant. You know, he probably doesn't mean innate or not innate. He probably not mentioned that, but he talked about everybody is capable to do it. And I never see people doesn't have enough. I never see people incapable to do it. And later on, he adds something confusing, cause confusion, saying, "Oh, probably they have some. I just never see it." So that's the way he talked. You know.
Yeah, I was just trying to understand that. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. We have Phil and Tony. Phil, please.
Yeah, I certainly agree the word hate is wrong here. But beyond that, it seems to me, if he is humble and admit that even he, Confucius, or nobody he's seen, can be Ren all day long, that there are parts that are not Ren, then in a sense that also, it also seems to invite a kind of self-introspection, because you see the non-Ren within you. So therefore you have more empathy with people who do not have Ren or non-Ren, who are non-Ren in them. And so therefore there could be a sort of compassion, but also a self-criticism about why can't you be Ren all day long? So in that sense, it's sort of a very humble, and that's that the inner part is also important.
Okay, thank you, Phil. We have Tony, Mark, and Claudia. Tony, please.
It's slightly repeating stuff before, but it's a bit more kind of precise in a way. So it seems to be that, so if a person's not, if a person a particular day, which is most days according to this thing, is not Ren, then does that mean they're not a Ren person? Does that mean that then the days, some days they're a Ren person and some days they're not a Ren person? Or is anybody a Ren person? Or is it the only people who are non-Ren person people are the people who are never Ren? Never have a day or half a day or an hour or a minute or a second in which they're Ren. So it seems to be that how can a person be Ren if nobody can succeed, even Confucius can't succeed to be Ren every day? How can they be a Ren person? What does it mean to be a Ren person?
I think, yeah, no, here's my take. The minutes, right? Nobody is fully a Ren person. That's like the perfect person, and nobody is perfect. And I think Confucius acknowledges that. But you can be more, you can always, but that also means you can always be more perfect, and you should always try that.
Yeah, thank you, Pim. Yeah, I think this section remind me, why when I was learning this one, the teacher just asked us to memorize, don't ask questions, because we cannot finish if you ask questions. So go ahead. Who's next? Just joke. You can ask questions. Claudia, please.
Yes, I wonder if Confucius was accurate, or those who followed his followers, saying that those who are not Ren are incapable of overcoming their hardships. They can't find perhaps inner peace or tranquility, or incapable of loving others because, for example, Buddhists, they're not Ren people because Confucianism and Buddhism, they seem to be like opposites. But Buddhists, they can achieve inner tranquility. They can feel compassionate towards others through enlightenment, right? Meditation, right? But perhaps Confucianism, though it differs in that you need to kind of like an act of love, perhaps he's meaning, because you have to love your immediate family members first, relatives, and then you work yourself outwards towards friends and strangers. But in Buddhism, you kind of become like a recluse. You become, through meditation, you're encouraged to leave your family members and find inner peace. So there's a difference there. So there's active and passive in a way. But I'm just saying you can still find happiness and peaceful through other methods. That's just Confucianism is just one way. Ren is one way. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Who is next? Mark, Kevin, and Audrey. Mark, please.
Yeah. Thank you, Jason. Yeah, I really appreciated Phil's comment quite a while ago when he made a disagreement, and also Jason, you asking him for clarification on exactly whether he was disagreeing that was what Confucius was saying, or whether he was disagreeing with Confucius's interpretation of the issue. Because I think that distinction is really important. A lot of times when people, I've noticed, especially with Christianity and Marxism, when people study texts from very influential authors, sometimes there's like a canonical attitude towards the text where one loses sight of whether one agrees with the author or not, and agreement with the author is assumed, and the only issue that's under dispute is what did the author mean, and there's this kind of implicit, if you know what the author means, then you know what's real. But of course, Confucius and Christ and Marx or whoever, they're just, people or whatever, they have their viewpoints, and that doesn't necessarily mean that that's, necessarily my viewpoint or your viewpoint. So about this, I'm finding, okay, I have to admit, I have a little bit of a distaste for Confucianism, although I'm starting to appreciate it a little bit more based on getting a little bit more familiar with it. But this whole discussion of Run, what it's really making me think about is I feel, and I really like some feedback on this, especially from the people that are more familiar with Confucianism. I'm really feeling a strong similarity with Christianity. Like there's this striving to achieve this state of perfection, like the state of absence of sin or something, like you're trying to purify yourself, like Run is this good thing. And I would kind of contrast that to Taoism, at least my understanding of it, is it's not so much about trying to achieve some perfect state of purity. It's about seeing contradictory things and looking for balance between things. So like yin and yang aren't good and bad. You look for the balance between them. So in this state, we're just talking about how do you achieve Run and how do you maintain Run and how do you get closer to Run. Well, what about not Run? What about the balance between Run and not Run? What about the balance between love and hatred? What about the balance between compassion and indifference? It seems to me there's a value to not Run as well as a value to run. So to me, in that way, Confucianism seems similar to Christianity, and I would contrast that to Taoism a little bit. Those are just my thoughts. I'd welcome any response if anybody disagrees or agrees or whatever. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Yeah, so yeah, I think the important, I would suggest everybody, if you disagree for your own taste, please start with, I don't like what Confucius said. So we make it clear. So we will know that's your opinion. So I will use this word, but so far I haven't used this word. That means I like what Confucius said, and that means I dislike. I just, I do my best to figure out what Confucius tried to teach. I haven't released my own taste yet. So yeah. Who is next? We will go, sorry, I got lost. So we have a lot of hands up, so please make sure we focus on the text. Okay, so let's go this order. Claudia, Nathaniel, Pin, and Audrey. Okay, Claudia.
Yeah, I'll try to be quick since there's a lot of people. Yeah, regarding what Mark said, I agree with partly with Mark. There's important similarities between Christianity and Confucianism. There's also important differences. Well, the similarity is to love other people, right? Christianity also preaches to, let's say, love your neighbor as you love yourself, right? So there's a similarity. But the important difference is that Confucianism focuses on the world here on earth, right? The temporal world. However, Christianity focuses more on the afterlife, preparing yourself for, the life in heaven along, with Jesus Christ. So there's the afterlife of Christianity, and then there's the non-afterlife, the temporal world of Confucianism.
All right, thank you. Next one will be, sorry, I think somebody probably out of order. So, sorry, I just lost the sequence. Okay, so Nathaniel, Pin, and Audrey. Nathaniel.
Thanks. I was going to comment on what Mark said. I think too in religion, I mean, I'm making a generalization here, but there's like a difference between orthopraxy and orthodoxy. And like orthopraxy is like what you do, and orthodoxy is like what you believe. So it seems like with Ren, it's more about like how you're behaving more than what you believe exactly, where Christianity tends to emphasize more having right belief. I'm not completely, but but so there's kind of a distinction I think that's going on here between these two belief systems, so this is more of an orthopraxy thing than an orthodoxy thing. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Nathaniel. Okay, Pin, please.
Hi, I think it's fine to do fine and interesting to compare different schools of thought or compare this to cross-compare religions and whatnot. But I think it's also a dangerous thing to do. We have to keep in mind Confucius had no awareness of Taoism or Christianity or Buddhism. At his time, those things did not, those labels or even those schools had not existed yet. So I just want to kind of put a warning label on that. We can't just say, oh, well, think of Confucianism as the opposite of this other thing, or as the same as another thing. That's any of those statements will, as a wholesale statement, will always have a lot of problems. Another thing, and keep in mind that Confucius and Lao Tzu most likely were friends, and also not more than friends. Confucius was likely Lao Tzu's student. So there are similarities between their beliefs, and there are also major differences. Another thing is we have to keep in mind, as far as the Analects, not to sound a bit cavalier, is most scholars agree that it's written by students of Youzi and Zhenzi mostly, two of Confucius' students. And as far as we know, Zhenzi is kind of Confucius' dumbest student, and Youzi was the funniest. So we have to take it at that value. And also reading this ancient text from 2,500 years ago, written on bamboo, the text itself was very easily either scrambled, or you lose a strip of bamboo, or a strip of bamboo gets inserted in the wrong place. So my kind of general attitude in reading these texts, some texts are just, you can't make logic out of it, and you can't fully understand it. So it is, on the face of it, the first sentence and the second sentence are kind of contradictory. It's hard to reconcile both of them. So I kind of have the attitude, I try to understand, I take what I can understand. And the ones that are just kind of impossible to fully make logic out of it, I just leave it as is. So to me, this passage, for me personally, I personally focus on the end part that Confucius is talking about people having the ability, everyone have the ability, but nobody can do it all the time. That's sort of my, I really in the utilitarian way, like what can I personally get out of reading this? And that's, so, okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, today we focus on Analects. Okay, yeah, just like Pin said, just portion of Confucius, and the Confucius doesn't, we don't know it's true or not true. But personally, I believe Confucius' writing is more on in the I Ching, okay, the commentary on I Ching. That's probably more on Confucius' true opinion, okay. And this one is written like after 100 years, so we don't know, what's going on. So, so please focus on the text, okay. So, Audrey, please.
Well, I was going to say two things. One is that my translation says, the master said, I have never seen one who loves Ren and hates what is not Ren, which to me means, I don't care what other people think, and I don't even care what I think. I don't know what was written here, what they meant, what their intent was, but that sentence in English means to me, I have never seen one who loves Ren and hates what is not Ren. We're talking about the one person who loves Ren and is not, and hates, doesn't hate.
Oh, okay.
You know what it's mean? You know what I'm saying? It says, I have never seen one who loves Ren and hates somebody else. So in other words, I've never seen somebody that loves Ren who actually hates anybody or who actually avoids anybody. So I don't know, that's one thing. And the other thing.
I agree with that translation, yeah, by the way, yeah.
Yeah, and well, I don't know what translation I have
please continue, yeah.
But the other question was, well, it wasn't a question. It was that when we talk about Western Buddhism, even though I've always shied away from talking about Buddhism, I'm floored by what Claudia said of what Buddhism is. And I just really want to talk about how Buddhism does not tell you to work only on yourself without regard of anybody else, and certainly would never tell you to be a recluse. That's the whole thing about right action. So, Claudia, it's very interesting to have you in here, but I will have to talk about that next week.
Yeah, okay, so Buddhism in 2 weeks, okay? So we talk about Buddhism. Yeah, in 2-3 weeks, we are going to talk about Buddhism in the Western sense, okay? So that's another subject we can talk about. Okay, who's next? Probably is Kevin. Okay, again, yeah, I think that's okay. I think I know when you read the English version, you're confused, but I just have to, I believe Pin agree with me. You read the Chinese, it's the same confused, it's not much difference. It's very confused because the text by itself, okay. Kevin, you're next. Sorry, I think you wait for a long time.
It's okay, Jason, yeah. And because timing is, I don't know how to talk. That's lots to take. I want to share one Western we see. Once a liar, always a liar. This one have contact here is from them. They see one day or one task or one behavior, you behaved then. Maybe another time, another event, you behaved wrong. So it's not them. So it's hard. It's easy to be nice to others one time or once a day. It's hard to be nice to others, every time, every day. That's it's my simple English to understand. And also for religion perspective, from Confucius, it's you think about yourself as God. You want to use that as religion perspective. You can feel it, understand what the text itself. Also, you can use analytically, talk with others, share each other opinion. Let's get a different perspective, different dimension. And by the way, then it's empathy or sympathy. You see English also can understand that. Last one, I would say, we try, I learned from here, this, in the Asian Chinese, those texts, it's hard to see the dichotomy, let's think, let's hate. Those, extreme, those the word, it's woo, like I like Ping said, you smell bad, some smell you don't like, move away. Maybe other people like that smell, they got a phone from own group. So give people option. Thank you.
Thank you. Jyoti, you are next, please.
Oh, I love the last comment. I don't know who made it, but yes, I completely agree. And I would also just wanted to say that it would be nice if we concentrated on Confucius and not introduce other religions. Like, I personally did not like the introduction of the word heaven, because that's a very Christian concept. And I don't think at that time there was a concept of heaven. But I wanted Jason to ask you, so the translation that was provided to us for the one who hated non-Ren, disallow non-Ren to affect himself. But it seems it's a lot more clear in the translation that you attached, which is one who hated inhumanity would be humane so as not to allow inhumanity to affect his person. So if, it's like you have,
I made a mistake.
Yeah, hold on. Let me see how I can say this. It is part of Ren to not tolerate, but to be compassionate towards a person that happens at that time to be in a non-Ren state. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
a little
yeah,
bit.
yeah.
Yes, it is actually, you need that as the Ren. When you're in Ren, you are actually being compassionate of non-Ren behavior. So you're not going into, I hate this non-Ren, blah, 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 or spouting hate. You're more, okay, this person at this time is not able to, is quote unquote triggered, or is not able to hold goodness, or, hold a state of Ren, which is very different from just, oh, I hate this non-Ren person.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. That's a big mistake, and but that's stuff on me, because the text was doing hated, so I just took copy and paste. Then I didn't pay much attention on this. Sorry about this. Next time, pay more attention. I don't know it caused so much problem.
Oh no. I didn't mean to criticize you.
No, don't worry. Don't worry.
May I was just reading this over. I actually think I figured out
that makes a little bit more sense.
you want to say
Yeah,
something
sorry
about this
to
text?
jump in, sorry. I'm looking over, I think I figured out the translation. Could I make an attempt here? I've never seen one who loves Ren being disgusted by those who are devoid of Ren. People who love Ren do not hold anything in particular in supreme esteem. Those who are disgusted by people devoid of Ren, if they were to actually practice Ren, they would not allow those who are devoid of Ren to affect them. I think this, to me, it is
Excellent.
it is what the original text says. I read it, that's how I read it in the original. And it also flows in logic to me.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, okay. So yeah, you know how difficult of this.
Can I just insert one thing?
Yeah.
Again, I think that Ren is not a Ren person. Ren is something you're practicing at that time. So you can hold both. And at some point you're, not tired, not hungry, not something, and you can hold, okay, I'm in a state of Ren. However, the next 5 minutes, somebody dies that you care about. Sorry to introduce melodrama. And then you're not in a state of Zen anymore, a Ren anymore. You're kind of like, oh, that. I just think that's an important distinction. We're not talking about a person all the time.
Yeah, we don't talk about person, but sometimes Confucius talk about the person. Okay, so yeah, we figure out later. It's not that easy. Okay, for 2,000 years, nobody really figured out probably. So, Nathaniel, please.
Yeah, I think too there's a difference between like mysticism and systematic philosophy. And I don't think this is trying to be systematic philosophy where they're trying to make completely logical statements or something like that, where it's more meant to, there's almost an ineffability to this or something. So where you have to just experience Ren. So I think maybe we're making like almost a category mistake, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you. So Chinese philosophy is very different, okay, than the Western sense of philosophy. So yeah, great that you mentioned this. It's difficult to use Western sense to understand. Yeah. I think next one will be Rubana and Claudia.
I think, Jason, you said that when Chinese philosophy is very hard to understand from a Western sense.
No,
I'm trying to understand Ren. So are nonviolent people who believe in nonviolence, are they in Ren?
Well, that's another big question. I'm not going to answer now. So you have to read more to understand.
Will Ping
because
answer?
Just 1 minute. Today our goal is to try to figure out what's Ren. Okay, not talking about what's there's no authoritative answer about what is Ren. Okay, because we are go back to the original definition, the text. Okay, we want to get a taste how Confucius talk about Ren. Okay, and try to get your own understanding. Okay, so that's the purpose. Okay, it's not like give you a lecture, okay, and then tell you here's the 5 things about Ren. So, Claudia, please. Claudia, are you here? It's gone. Okay. if Claudia come back, welcome to jump in. I think we talk about this one. We have a few minutes left, so we can finish, try to finish as much as possible. I think we talk about this one, right? So Confucius said the wise man, okay, enjoying the water. This one is very famous. Okay, the rain people take joy in mountains, and wise men are active. The rain people are tranquil. The wise men enjoy, the rain people endure. Okay, so I don't know why, but you can use your imagination to think about. Let's try to define. So the Ren and the wisdom, they always confuse over, not always put together most of the time. So that's the way we can contemplate. So we are going to talk about the introduce one of the students, so-called 子贡. Okay, is that 端木士, right? Okay, I think we talked about a few months ago. Just give an overview. Okay, 子贡 is smart, eloquent, judgmental. Okay, and very successful. He's one of his richest students. Okay, doing well in business, and he's good in literature. So he's very familiar with the Book of Odes. And so since he is eloquent, so he talk too much. Okay, so Confucius usually want him to be more be practical. Okay, so this text, okay, 子贡 said, "What will you say of someone who broadly benefited the people and was able to help everyone? Could he be called 人?" Okay, he's a business people. He talk about benefit, have everybody have a good life. The master say, how will this be matter of 人? Surely it will be sagehood. Okay? Even Yao and Sun were concerned about such things. Okay, so you talk about too big. Okay, the take care of everybody, benefit everybody. That's the sagehood. The sage king like Yao and Sun is doing this. Okay, as for 人, you want to establish yourself, then help others to establish themselves. You want to develop yourself, then help others to develop themselves. Okay. Being able to recognize oneself in others, one is on the direction of being 人. Basically, it's the same as similar to previous texts. You talk about 人, it's just around you. You just want to do it. You do it yourself and help other people to develop or establish 人 for other peoples. That's 人, okay? That's the right direction. You don't have to think about like a big thing like benefit everybody, and then help everybody. You don't have to think this big thing. That's the sage king's business. Okay, so it's very easy. Okay, you just do it, and help other people to do it. That's the way Confucius talk about. And he specifically talk about to 子贡 because he is rich. He is, probably think too big. Yeah, so that's the way Confucius talk about. We have a Claudia back. Yeah, sorry, Claudia, I lost you.
Sorry,
so,
I got disconnected because my battery. Yeah, regarding, I don't have any problems with Mark bringing up religion, Christianity, especially if it marks a difference between Confucianism and some other ideology, right? Like I don't agree with, many times I disagree with people, but I don't tell them, well, you shouldn't say this or say, well, this is a democratic form. So if it helps to learn Confucianism more, then we can talk about other things, right? So anyway, regarding Buddhism, it's Buddhism was in competition with Confucianism. There are different ways of finding inner peace and finding happiness. So to become a Buddha, reach Buddhahood, you have to live in isolation. You have to meditate. That's why you don't see people who followed Confucianism lock themselves in monasteries, live in monasteries, right? So there's an important difference between Buddhism and Confucianism, and they were two competing ideologies. And regarding one last thing, regarding what Pin said, that Taoism did not influence Confucius. Yes, perhaps not directly, but indirectly through the Book of Changes, because he was influenced by the Book of Changes. And Confucianism and Taoism, they took roots in the Book of Changism, especially the notion of everything in the universe is interrelated and constantly changing, right? So Taoism does play a role. That's my opinion.
All right, thank you. Yeah, and then let's focus on the text. And then, yeah, we all disagree many things, and Pin and I also have many things to disagree. Yeah, so, yeah, and even we read the same text, so, that's fine. That's why we are here. Okay, Pin, you want to say something, please?
Yeah, thank you, Claudio, for making that point. Yeah, I definitely wasn't trying to discourage anyone from anything. Just the opposite. I was just trying to put a nuance on. And I do think in specific cases, it is helpful to help us understand by cross-comparing different schools of thought and religion and whatnot. I've just kind of warned against, drawing bigger conclusions. Yeah, so thank you.
I wasn't referring to you. I was referring to the lady who said we
Okay,
should.
no, let's stop. Let's stop.
Well, never mind. The person doesn't matter. The meaning is the same. Yeah, go ahead, Claudio.
Let's focus on today's text. Okay, yeah, that's good to comparison other religion, other school. That's fine, but just one sentence. That's like.
And one quick thing, I wasn't saying that Taoism. Actually, Taoism did not influence Confucianism. Actually, the opposite. I was trying to say that Confucianism and Taoism came from the same heritage. That's my personal view. It's not something that's consensus or anything. But okay, thank you. That's all.
Okay, so let's move on. Okay, this one should be simple, right? I think we continue on the Ren is simple. Okay, is Ren far away? If one want to be Ren, then Ren is here. Okay, so this one is Confucius said. I don't know who he spoke to, but basically he said, Ren is not difficult to do it, but just whether or not you want to do it or not. Okay, so let's introduce another student, Fan Ci. Fan Ci being not so smart. Okay, so being a little, and he has a poor upbringing. So he's just opposite than Zhigong. Zhigong is rich and think big. And Fan Ci, he famously asked about a lot of questions, stupid questions, because he never, so many times he did not get it. So Confucius usually will ask him to be Ren smartly, okay? Because sometimes he's like too detail oriented. He probably even tried to teach, being an officer, he even tried to teach the people how to grow grains, how to do the work. So Confucius tells, don't do that, So that's, we cover this part. Fan Ci asked about Ren, okay? The master said, loving people. He asked about the wisdom. The master said, knowing people. A very simple answer. When Fan Ci did not understand, the master said, promote the righteous people, put on above the crook, and you are able to make the crook righteous. Okay, so he tells Fan Ci that's very easy. Okay, because Fan Ci is not so smart and then detail oriented. He did too much, and he asked about Ren. Confucius just say, what's Ren? Okay, loving people. What's wisdom? Just knowing people. So he told him, being an officer, what you have to do is just put the good people on top of bad people, so the bad people become good people. So that's the simple answer Confucius as teaching. Okay, so I hope this one will further define what is Zen, but you probably disagree, but that's the way Confucius teach it. Madeline, please.
Yes, thank you, Jason. If you could just stay on that slide for one moment. If you could say perhaps what the other meanings of the word righteous are in the original characters, some other possible English translations?
Okay, so in the Chinese translation here, okay, Confucius uses is 直, okay, means the straight, okay, like a wood is a straight, okay, and wang, okay, is crook, the bandit. So by the face, but the face value of the word, okay, so straight. So the word Chinese Confucius theory is teaching 凡词 is put the straight, okay, on top of the crook, okay, or bandit, okay, and the crook will become straight. That's this simple.
Okay, great. Oh, sorry.
Later, as a further example, I didn't include it here. Basically, he further tell, because Fanzi is not so smart, so Confucius have to tell him more example, like, okay, in the ancient king, Yao and the Sun, he put this guy as a minister, so everybody become good people, so something like this. He needs this example, but that's exactly what.
Okay, what you said about the wood grain, didn't we have a discussion at some point in this group about a pattern? It was like patterns embedded in wood grain, patterns in water, patterns in stone, and how they were related. Is it that type of kind of straight grain growth that's a concept in Chinese that's being referred to here?
No, I think it's talking about the straight meaning like a ruler. I don't mean a person ruler, like a straight piece of wood that's straight, like a ruler, and you put it next to the one that's crooked, then you will, first of all, it'll become apparent the crooked one is crooked. And also then you have a reference to an example for the crooked to become straight.
Yeah, that's the
a metaphor. Yeah.
Alina and Jyoti. Okay, Alina, please.
Okay, I'm here, and I'm just going to bring my cell phone away. Put it away.
Alina?
Yes, I'm here. I just put my cell phone away so we won't have echo. And yeah, it's a great presentation. So yeah, let me ask you a question. It's on one of the slides, Fan Chi and acting smartly. So he says that first is clear. Don't ask too many questions. You ask too many questions, you're just going nowhere. And then it's all masters say, you're asking too many questions. So it's clear to me. But the second one is focus on details. What does that mean? To be in the state of optimal flow, like we'll focus on details. Yeah, the one before loving people, Jason.
Okay, so I think so here I probably do it a little too rush here. Okay, I just try to contrast the 子贡, okay, one smart, rich student, and the 樊迟 is another not so smart and the poor upbringing people. 子贡is a person who always think big, all right, and then Confucius say no. That's the Yao and the Sun, the ancient sage king's business. When you talk about Ren, you just develop yourself, help person next to you. That's Ren, okay? You don't have to think about like this huge thing. Fan Chi is another student who is poor. I think that's another text. He talk about he want to learn how to grow grains, to grow vegetable, some this kind of thing. Confucius tell him, no, you don't have to do this. It's simple. You just put the straight people, okay, straight, I mean, righteous people on top or next to the crooked people, then you will fix everything. It's that simple. You don't have to do so many things. I think that's the essence here. And like to show is, that's how Confucius teach Ren to different kind of student. Jyoti, please.
I just want to say that this was one of the most beautiful metaphors that I have seen, because, raise the upright, put them over the crooked, and you should be able to cause the crooked to become upright. I mean, that just raises your level of behavior to such a beautiful extent. Like you're not criticizing anyone, but you're showing up as your best self. So they can see what maybe a different kind of approach to a particular situation is. So I absolutely loved that. But I'm a little bit confused about the first part. So the master said it is loving people. He asked about wisdom. The master said it is knowing people. So humaneness is about loving and wisdom is about knowing. So is humaneness Ren? And what is wisdom?
Well, that's we don't know. That's why we try to define. But okay, so reading Confucius Analects is very different than you read the Plato's dialogue, right? If you read Plato's dialogue, he will tell you, okay, this guy meet this guy, and he tell me yesterday we have a drinking party, and who tell you what? Then talk about all the conversation. Okay, so you know the background. Okay, who said what? What's going on? Confucius just burst out something. Okay, so you don't know what's going on, what's the background. So that's I figure out is Fan Ci is a student, and all his students are government officer. Okay, they have the job, political job. So Fan Ci is not so smart. He probably doing too much detailed things. So he asked his teacher, Confucius, what's Ren, since you talk about Ren all the time. Confucius, no, his student is not so smart, doing a lot of detailed work, unnecessary, just tell you, Ren, love people, okay? What's the wisdom? Knowing people, okay? Put the good people, okay, on top of the bad people. Everything is done. You don't have to do so much. But he will not use the same answer to Zigong, which is more, not detail related. Look at the big picture. He wanted more detail. That's the way Confucius teaches. And then we don't know the background. We have to infer the background. So
just quickly, Jason, I just wanted to introduce some humor here. So when I was little and in Indian school in Kuwait, we were learning according to the Indian style. I would ask a lot of questions. So the teacher said to me, how will you ever learn anything? You ask so many questions.
That's true, though. That's why I said when I learned this one in Taiwan, okay, if the teacher allowed students to ask, then we are not going to learn anything. But so
completely opposite of Western, learning. So
that's right. But that's the way we do it, and that's why I think Pin mentioned once, like your father or your teacher will say, don't ask so much. Memorize. When you grow up, you will understand. Okay, so
yeah, it was even more extreme. It was you're not supposed to try to understand it. Just memorize it, and when you're old enough, you'll understand. So, yeah. So yes, the GOT, your teacher reminds me of a lot of teachers I had in Taiwan as well. So, is it my turn? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I have a few mishmash of points. So GOT, yeah, another metaphor for Confucius you might enjoy that's similar is the leader is like the wind and the people under are like grass. Whichever way the wind blows, the grass will bend that way. So if you have a crooked leader, you tend to make the populace crooked. If you have a hateful leader, same. But if you have a benevolent one, people will become influenced. So kind of like the bully pulpit concept in the West. And couple of nuance clarification. In the one with Zigong, Confucius said was even Yao and Shun, those great sage kings, could not achieve what you said. Right, Bing is a sickness. Basically, they were worried sick that that they could not fully achieve that this benefiting all mankind. So you start with yourself, and you start with something more practical. And another thing, since we talked a lot about the socioeconomic class of the students, I want to add that Confucius identified himself as from a humble beginning. He said that he came from a poor background, and that's why he's skillful in many trades. And another thing to clarify is that Confucius believed in betterment of society by good people entering civil service. So I think this is part of the thing of what he was telling Fan Zhi, is he wanted to cultivate them to be a leader in government. And that's why he's talking about putting the righteous in position. And he wanted to aspire him to be in a leadership position in government one day, where he would be in the position of employing, other people, officials, that he would be making those kinds of decisions. So maybe it's because, of course, I'm extrapolating on my own, that speculating that maybe because Fan Zhi is coming from a humble background, that Confucius is trying to elevate his expectations.
Yeah, thank you, Pin. Yeah. Audrey, please.
I was going to say that I was responding to Jyoti about wisdom and knowing. I found that also very interesting in that section. And I wanted to, philosophically, I always thought that compassion was loving people, and you can have compassion, but knowing people and knowing what to do is wisdom. And you can't have wisdom without compassion, but you can have compassion without wisdom. You could love somebody and just constantly give out idiot compassion just because you love them. And eventually, loving them will make you feel better, but may not be the right thing for them at the time. And the knowing of what they need or knowing how to help is the wisdom part. And I guess that's saved for the sages, I don't know. But I thought, I heard that in a class once, and I found that very interesting, that there was a difference between wisdom and compassion.
Thank you. But we should not make an equal sign, make it rent equal to compassion. Okay, so because it's very vague definition. Right. So before we end, that's I think this one is important. Okay, so rent is more important than your life. Okay, so for 1,000 years, for all the people, material, okay, you sacrifice yourself. Said the dedicated people and the rent people will never seek life. Okay, if it means harming the matter of the rent, they will rather sacrifice their life so as to achieve the matter of the rent. So that's how important, how easy you can do rent, but it's how important, okay, in Confucius' mind. So that's to the end of today's session. Okay, we probably don't. We only have one left, but but that's fine. I think we achieve a lot with so many questions. So, any last comment and anything you want to say? It's a little bit difficult, and and these remind me probably I should practice the Chinese way. When I was kids, the teacher said no questions, just memorize. So I will probably next time I will say, before you ask questions, recite a text, then you ask a question. So that probably the easy way.
I put this in the text, but I wanted to thank you so much. All the work that you put definitely created a very vibrant discussion. Thank you for all the subtle translation.
Yeah, first it's sorry if we had some translation. This due to my English and also due to the difficult of the ancient texts. Okay, so it's difficult. Okay, but
Please
I try
do
my
not
best.
apologize. You did such a great
And the
job.
second thing
Thank
is,
you.
second thing is here I'm not presenting, I'm not teaching. Basics I want people to know, and after this you will decide whether or not you want to read it or you don't want to read it, and you like it or you don't like it. Okay, that's all fine, but I just want to present the fact what the Chinese or the Confucius said it, and I don't mind at all. You say, oh, that's a terrible teacher, that's a stupid idea. That's fine, because I also have the same comment on a lot of things. So, that's perfect fine, but I just want to know what's the fact. Yeah.
Jason, I have one
have,
question. Oh, I'm sorry. There are others.
So let's go from Mark, Madeline, and Alina. Okay, Mark, please.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. Yeah, I also want to say that, like, I go to a lot of Zoom meetup groups, and I really appreciate your facilitation. I think you maintain a very nice balance between the material and allowing people to kind of discuss the material and say their own opinions. And it doesn't, for me, personally, for my taste, everyone may, others may feel differently. I feel like it's really nice because people kind of get to express themselves and interact, yet you maintain a focus on the material at the same time. And I think you do an excellent job doing that. So I just want to say I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. But you don't know I'm suffering because my opinion have no chance to express. So that's the price I pay. So I have to go to other meetup to express my opinion. So, who is next? Madeline and Alina. Okay.
Jason, you're a brave man. Thank you so much for doing this. I realize that with every with this group of Overthinkers Anonymous, with every text we look at, we end up getting stuck on one point. So I think you decided to break down Confucius's main ideas by just examine each one like the character. But we didn't even really get through one character today. And I'm hoping that instead of doing Ren Part 2, you would be willing to continue on to Li and some of the other Confucian concepts, because those seem to crop up a lot in the other readings that come up later in other Chinese philosophy.
I have a plan to do xiao, okay, which is filial piety, okay, and that will be usually a lot are in the book 2, okay, I have a lot of xiao, so probably I will just ask people to read book 2, then let's go through. And again, if you want to learn some academic or something, you probably have to go to the YouTube or go to some online class to learn, okay? Here, or buy a book to read. Here, the purpose, just like Mark said, I have to balance between text and the discussion, and I know people like to express yourself. So that's the way to let people communicate and stimulate what you are thinking. That's the purpose. So if you feel disappointed, you are not learning enough, so you probably have to go to online class or something to do some serious learning. Okay, so here we are just present the thing we have, and then we talk about this. That's it. So Alina, please.
Okay. Just looking at the last slide, Jason, Ren is more important than your lives. That's, this one, huh? It's generally, that's what everyone wants you to do. And from my experience, speaking from my experience, is that, sometimes you have to slow down and see if it serves you and serves of what you are, who you are. And sometimes you have to sit quietly and protest, like, I'm not doing this. Thank you. I appreciate it. And because of...
I'm not asking you, yeah. I just say that's a Confucius.
Yes, absolutely.
I say that's master said, okay, I didn't say you do this, okay, so
Uh-huh.
please don't take my message, and I didn't say I agree, so okay.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Rubena, and
Just let me add something. So that's why Confucianism was promoted. That's what everyone's saying who was in China in the period of communism. It was kind of aligned a little bit with the notion of Communist Party. Because of that, you have to sacrifice yourself. The master said so for the greatest good of all. And then another thing that what you said, Jason, sometimes I learn the best when I'm quiet and I just ask no questions. So I just let everyone speak and let them create that. So thank you so much. It's a great group.
right, thank you for joining. Yeah, I hope everybody enjoys. So, and we are here to have a good time. I think that's the most important thing. And then I personally, I don't believe they have a philosophy, good philosophy or bad philosophy, because same thing you can make you good or bad. Reading Confucius, like Chiang Kai-shek is a perfect, good Confucian training, and dedicated Christian doesn't make him a good person. So, so I don't see reading something will make you a good person. You just understand something. That's my opinion. Rubena, please.
Hi, Jason, I have two questions. One, when you mentioned the other student, I forgot the name, and was asking question considered stupid, or is it still considered stupid in the Chinese culture? Number one. Number two.
Well, that's a big question, but that's what's the Fanci? Fanci is not so smart. And the Pin also mentioned the Zhengzi, that's another dumb student, a very young student. I think he's much younger. His father, and he also in same as a disciple of Confucius. So, and the Zhengzi probably the youngest and the dumbest student. So
wait, I want to clarify.
No?
It's not that asking questions is seen as stupid.
What
the asking questions is not seen as, in those old days, as the best way to learn. There's a big difference. And also things have changed totally. In Taiwan, and I'm sure in mainland China as well. That
you mean people ask questions now?
Yeah, and teachers want to encourage that.
And not memorize. I remember when I was in school, I didn't get a math or algebra, and my teacher said, memorize the whole thing. If it comes, just write it down. You don't need to understand.
Yeah, tell me that everybody have a different experience, and then I still think even today in Asia, people ask less questions than America. So
well, I don't know. Like you look at the Singapore math, which is becoming popular in the US, it's all about really breaking down math, thinking about the very fundamental structures of math and everything. So I wouldn't make that generalization.
The second question I have is, are we going to also learn about later philosophers? Like, are we going to spend more time in ancient China?
Okay, that I've been thinking this one for a long time. I want to introduce the new one, but I turn to the point. If you give, okay, that's my personal view. I hope everybody have an idea or heard something, send a note to me. That's important because I figure out, Chinese. That's a personal opinion. Chinese philosophy, Chinese put a very high thing as a harmony. Harmonic is very important. So the philosophy, unlike Western, people disagree each other, so get like a different branch. They have a continental, they have a British empiricism, and later on we come with existentialism. Then Bertrand Russell comes with the analysis of, Chinese doesn't go this way. Basically, it's like from big to small. We have 100 schools, and then get the this and the this and this. Okay, so the situation is like this. If you need to go later part, you probably need understand the previous part. So that's the situation and the dilemma and I'm facing. So before this meetup, I'm reading something called the Red Chamber Dream. Okay, that's a literature, but there's a lot of rich philosophy here. And I'm trying to, that's in the 18th century China. And then, but that's mixed with literature. Okay, so it's a difficult part, but I hope Pin can help me or anybody can give me an idea. I definitely want to move on to the later part, but you know, they have some difficulty. Unlike Western philosophy, they have a branch and then it's easy to jump around. You know. Pin, you want to say something? You disagree?
Well, I wonder, I have an idea that's been kind of brewing in my mind a little bit. I wonder if the group think it's a good idea or not. I want to bounce it off. That as far as later, like Tang Dynasty, Song Dynasty, there's a lot of famous essays and poems that, you know, many of us had to memorize, and that have a lot of philosophy in there. So they're, you know, they're beautiful reading, easy reading, not too long. I wonder if the group might be interested in the future, you know, once in a while we can recommend one essay.
I think we can
or a poem and really dig deep into that piece.
You can prepare some, that'd be great, you know, on the poem or something.
Yeah, maybe something like 赤壁赋, you know, Su.
Okay, how about you do one? I think that is a good one because Chinese is philosophy never been a profession. So there's no job as a philosopher. So usually they are government officer, writer, politician, historian. So they all mix together. So, you know, that's why I try to introduce a novel which has rich philosophy inside. And like Pin talk about the 赤壁赋, that's a poem, a writing. They also have a lot of Taoism thinking, okay, ascetic, okay, idea over there. Historical background, very rich. But, you know, that's the, and a lot of, since Tang Dynasty, a lot of Buddhism thinking inside. So that's the difficult part. And then I try to do. You know. So we have, and another thing we try to expand, you know, not just focus on Chinese. And so people with different background, okay, so you're welcome to give me suggestion, provide material, or we want to jump on to talk about like Indian culture, Japan, Vietnam, you know, they all have
Persian maybe.
Persian, I also talk about Rupana, and we try to figure out the Middle East, the Middle Asia. Okay, so we need the people to talk about or deal with. We don't need the expert to deal this one, but we just have to somebody know the culture, and then you can lead the reading, because we all can read, and we read, we discuss, and we find out the problem. We may not get the answer from this group, but you know what kind of problem, what kind of question you have, then you can find the answer. So that, I think that's the purpose. So when you walk out from this one, you probably have more than you joined before. I think that's the purpose. Jyoti and Madeline, please.
Just quickly, this was one of the ones that we didn't discuss. It was 6.28, and I found that very, very profound, in which he says, you want to develop yourself and then help others to develop themselves. Being able to recognize oneself in others, one is on the way of being humane. I just wanted to put that out there, that to me, that you develop yourself and then help others to develop themselves is very sometimes antithetical to what we tend to do here, where we're like, oh, I'm going to go help. But you have to be a whole person yourself to be able to offer something to others. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, that's a very central tenet of Confucianism. Yeah.